Good evening, Purple family. Welcome to another episode of Shades of Purple, a Prince podcast. On tonight's episode, I'm going to be doing a special countdown in commemoration of the 7th anniversary of Prince's passing on tomorrow, April 21st. I'm going to be doing a top 5 countdown of 5 myths concerning Prince's death. So these are based on basically really my opinion, but I can back them up with things that I've read and things that I've seen. But for the most part, these are just my opinions. And I know that because of that, you might have a different opinion, and that's fine. And I would love to hear your opinion on not just this episode, but all episodes. But I know this one will probably get a lot of play because it is kind of a controversial subject. And that's fine. I welcome all opinions, both negative and positive. Bring it on. Okay. So let's get right into it. So number 5, the number 5 myth about his death was the fact that a lot of people really believe that Prince was in fact a drug addict. And we know inside the Purple Kingdom that was not the case, that Prince was probably one of the most anti-drug musicians, artists on the planet. He would fine his band members from drinking and smoking marijuana, or sometimes he would threaten to fire them. So he was very anti-drug from early on. He was also very clean living as far as what he put in his body. Of course, he became a vegetarian later in life, but even in the 80s, he was very careful about what he ate, and he was just he had a very clean and healthy lifestyle. So for people to just automatically assume, oh, he must be a drug addict because of the accidental overdose that took his life, you have to realize that Prince was in an awful amount of pain, just like excruciating pain, to the point where he did become addicted to the legal prescription drugs. And that has become known as the opiate pandemic, if you will, or what is another name for it? But it deals with, it's been affecting, it's worse than the drug war that they tried to initiate back in the 70s, when you remember when Nixon was like, he's going to start this war on drugs. Well, he really should have began a war with prescription legal drugs, because even back then it was a problem, but now it's definitely a problem. People have become addicted to these painkillers to the fact where not only are they dying, but it's affecting every aspect of their life. And so Prince, unfortunately, was a victim of the opioid crisis that we have in this country. And he wasn't the only one. Michael Jackson, of course, also had an addiction to painkillers. And it's easy to do. These painkillers like Vicodin and Percocet, they're very easy to become addicted to if you take them enough. And that's all it really was. He was never an illicit drug user. Now, there were times where he did experiment. Morris Day talked about how they did mushrooms once in the 80s. And of course, we know about the time that he took ecstasy around the time that he was recording the Black Album. But with those exceptions, and those aren't, to me, they're not that bad. It's not like he's like, somebody saw him doing cocaine lines or something. So he was never an illicit drug user. And I really did not like that narrative, because around the time, like right after he passed away, there was a lot of different, articles about the fact that, he was this drug addict. And people, on Facebook, YouTube, all over social media were saying, oh, he was a drug addict, wasn't he? And I know a lot of people consider the fact that Prince, since he was addicted to those painkillers, that does typically, make him a drug addict. But for me and my definition of a drug addict, I choose to believe that it's illicit drugs and not prescription. Like I said, that is my opinion. You might think differently. But in my mind, Prince has never been a drug addict. And I know in the minds of a lot of Purple fans, he was never, ever a drug addict. And the fact that this narrative continues even to this day is very bothering. But it is, in fact, a myth. It is not true at all. So that's number 5. Number 4, Okay, here we go. So that one wasn't too bad, but I'm gonna tell y'all might need to buckle up for these for the next 4. So number 4 was that he had a will that was destroyed. So I do not believe that Prince had a will. And the reason why I do not believe that he had a will was because of the fact that he did not like contracts, because of, the situation that he had in the 90s with Warner Brothers. After that, he just had an aversion to all contracts. And even in The Beautiful Ones, Dan Piepenbring talks about the fact that Prince wanted to get the book deal done without a contract. And he even asked if that was even possible. And I don't know if it was Dan that said it or somebody that was, working with Dan and Prince on the book project that said, hey, they're not going to cut a check until you sign the contract. So that lets me know that close to the end of his life, he continued to not like contracts. And I mean, that's just what it is. I really don't feel like he wanted to have anything to do with contracts. And a will is a contract. And I mean, that's just what it is. And people want to say that, Taika destroyed the contract, or whoever that may have come across it destroyed it. But I don't believe that either. Only because Taika, she knew that Prince probably wasn't going to leave her with anything. So, I mean, what would be the reason for her to destroy the will when there's nothing there for her? So there would be nothing. There would be no reason for her to destroy it. So that's just, like I said, that's just my opinion. And supposedly Neil Curlin, who was a journalist who befriended Prince and wrote the book. What is the name of the book? I can't even remember it now. Anyway, he wrote a book a couple of years ago. Oh, This Thing Called Life. And in this book, This Thing Called Life, and I referenced this book actually in my last episode, he said that supposedly that Prince did have a will and that it's buried somewhere beneath Paisley Park. So once again, this is all speculation. Nobody really knows. And, I'm not even going to rule that out. That's very much possible. But do I think that it was deliberately destroyed by Taika or whoever? No, I do not. And in my heart of hearts, I really don't believe that he had a will at all because of his aversion, his hatred of contracts. So that's number 4. Number 3, that he died from AIDS. This is probably one of the most ridiculous rumors that I heard concerning Prince's death. And a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, but some people were speculating that, the family was trying to keep a secret, that the reason why he really died was because he had full-blown AIDS, and because he was a Jehovah's Witness, that he wasn't trying to get it treated. And there's really just no evidence of this, because even on the Reels documentary, on the autopsy episode, they make mention of this theory. And the doctor pointed out that there is no way that Prince could have been dying from AIDS and performing the last week before he died. Because he said that had he been dying from AIDS, he would have been bedridden. There would have been no way that he would have be able to play the piano, would have been up and about, none of that. Now, mind you also, even after his last performance at the Fox Theater in Atlanta, he was seen around Chanhassen riding his bicycle all the way up until I think April 18th or so. He was riding his bicycle. So that shows you that not only was he probably better, but he definitely wasn't dying from AIDS. And some other people were trying to say, oh, well, he had it from the 90s. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't make sense either, because if he contracted it back in the 90s, then that means that he could have affected Maite and Manuela, both of his wives. And they never said anything about them having any kind of diseases. Or, I mean, of course they wouldn't. That kind of thing wouldn't be made public. But I don't know. Now with Maite, she might have said something if she was in fact infected. But I don't believe she was. And I don't believe that Manuela was either. And so people, I guess, forget that Prince was married in the early 2000s. And so, and like I said, not to say that Prince probably didn't get some kind of other venereal diseases, because, Prince was, let's just be honest, he was out there, especially in the 80s. Now, by the time of the 2000s and the 2010s, he had definitely calmed all the way down. But don't get it twisted. He was still probably getting a swerve on. His last girlfriend, Judith Hill, supposedly they had sex in one of his limousines, in the back of one of his limousines. And that was as late as 2014. So he was still sexually active, despite, him telling Rolling Stone that, he was going to be celibate or had been celibate. Prince would tell a lie in a minute. I love him just like y'all do, but he would. But do I believe that he died from AIDS? No, I do not. And I really wish that they would stop with this vicious rumor about him, because it's just not true and it's not founded. So that's number 3. Number 2. Okay, here we go. My number 2 myth is that he committed suicide. There is speculative evidence that he could have wanted to end his life, but that doesn't mean that that's what happened. According to Kurt Johnson, our favorite person in this this era of Prince's life, the last few years of his life. Now, Kurt Johnson claimed that on April 15th, the night that they had to land his plane in Moline, Illinois, was, because they had to do that because, of course, Prince was unconscious. And they landed the plane, got him to the ambulance, and they had to administer 2 doses of Narcan. And Narcan is a substance that they use to revive people that they believe are experiencing a drug overdose. And so they actually had to put 2 shots of Narcan into his body. So that tells you that he really was out of there. But supposedly he got mad at Kurt Johnson for making sure that he got revived. And so, but to me, that still doesn't mean that he wanted to kill himself, because just a little later, Judith Hill claims that when they got into the hospital and they got into the room and she spoke to Prince, and Prince told her that he was ready to get help, that he didn't want to keep going through this and having this issue, and that he wanted to get help. And so sure enough, after she took herself back to Los Angeles instead of being with her man, but whatever, Prince's team reached out to a therapist in California, Howard Confield, Howard, I think was his first name. And but he ended up, of course, sending his son because he was going to be coming out, the following day. And so we already know that whole story. But to me, Prince was, in control of his kingdom at all times. And so if he really didn't want to get no help, he would have not, told nobody, okay, well, look, can you call and try to see if someone can come to me and help start, this road to recovery. I know that was Prince wanting to do that and not just his team alone. Now, of course, his team would, do whatever Prince wanted them to do. But I don't see him deciding to want to end his life because he was just tired and ready to go. Judith Hill made some claims that said that, Prince was just saying that he was so tired and he was, ready to move on with his life. Well, move on to, the next plane in his life. And he may have been tired, and he's getting older, and he might have just been tired. And he was, he was sick. I don't think, of course, like I said, I don't know what he had. They were saying flu-like symptoms. And even Prince himself pointed out to Dan Pippenbring in the introduction of The Beautiful Ones that, you should believe everything that that people say online or on the news. So he just kind of downplayed it. But I think he was probably sick. He might have just had like a little cold or something. I'm not sure, but he definitely had something. But also, he put out, these different posts on Twitter saying that he felt rejuvenated and he felt, just ready to, alive and things like that. So for somebody to say, I feel rejuvenated, that's not somebody who wants to commit suicide. And also another thing. So supposedly there was a suicide note that was found at Paisley Park, but this has never been substantiated by the police or anyone else, and it somehow disappeared. So there's just all these different like gray areas with this one. But in my heart of hearts, I do not believe that Prince wanted to commit suicide, despite, all these different rumors saying that he was suffering from early onset Alzheimer's, which is something that Anna Fantastic said that she overheard at one of the memorials that they had for Prince. One of his family members had told her, I don't know if he told her directly or she overheard them talking, but she said in an interview that, that's what he was experiencing. And I can see, if that was the case, how that would deeply affect Prince, because when you have Alzheimer's, eventually you forget how to do everything. And with him being a musician, he was already in pain enough trying to play the guitar and play the piano without having to take those pain meds. So I could only imagine that if he did have Alzheimer's, how that would deeply, he wouldn't be able to do his music anymore. And I could see him maybe at that wanting to end his life for that, if that's what happened. So you know what? I'm open enough to leave this open for your interpretation. But in my heart of hearts, I really feel like that Prince wanted to live. He wanted to get better. And by the time that the people that were going to help him to get better arrived, it was just too late. So that's my opinion. So that's number 2. So number 1. All right, here we go. That he was murdered. Hear me out. Okay? Hear me out. I am open enough to say, just like I did with the committed suicide, I am open enough to say that there is enough speculative, circumstantial evidence to say that he probably was possibly murdered. And I'm going to say borderline murdered more though than explicitly murdered, only because whoever gave those pills to Prince, they may have not even known the level of fentanyl that was in those pills. Or they did. If they did know, then definitely he was murdered. If they did not know, then it was, an accident, manslaughter, So it's hard to say, because the police were never able to ascertain how he was able to get those pills. Now, for a while, Kirk Johnson was getting the pills in his name. And they would find, after Prince's death around Paisley Park, they found a number of pill bottles that were, labeled incorrectly. They found pills like in vitamin bottles and things like that. So he had quite a stash. And so that makes me believe that he really was in excruciating pain, and that he was trying to just get pills however he could get them. Like he was literally probably eating them like candy at that point. And that's really sad when you think about it, because Prince had been performing for almost 40 years, jumping off high stereos and jumping off pianos and heels. And that just did damage to his feet, his legs, and his hips. And supposedly, because of his Jehovah's Witness faith, did not allow him to get a double hip replacement because it would require a blood transfusion. But then I heard, according to his autopsy, that there were marks on his hips, so that he did get it, but he might have found a way to not have a blood transfusion, because according to some other people that I know that are Jehovah's Witnesses, there is a way that you can have surgery and bypass having a blood transfusion. So he more than likely had the hip replacement surgery. And from what I read, he had it around 2010, 2011, around that time. And if he did, you would think, okay, so why is he still having pain? And we'll never know. But as far as him being murdered, I mean, when you look at who could have wanted him dead. Okay, so people say that Tyka, his sister, or his other half siblings. Okay, I mean, that's possible, but, they got their money now, and what? They're gone. We're not gone, but they're still around. You know what I'm saying? As far as like, they've got his estate, but Tyka especially, she sold most of her stock to Primary Wave. So, and like I said, with the on number 4, when I talked about the will, Tyga wouldn't have a reason to kill Prince, because I mean, their relationship was getting back in a better place around 2014. In an interview that I listened to, Tyga said that, you know, Prince told her that he was getting ready to die, and that and he told her exactly, you know, what he wanted her to do. So, like I said, he may have had, I don't know, some kind of divine, you know, intervention or something like that that told him that he was getting ready to die. But Tyga made it seem like, you know, that she still, you know, had a somewhat, you know, fairly close relationship with Prince toward the end of his life. They had, you know, kind of separated because Tyga had some issues with drugs for many years, and Prince helped her with, you know, put her in rehab a few times and all that. And so they were just getting back to a good place. And she said all this in this interview that I watched. And so I don't know. I just don't think that, I mean, yeah, like I said, they got the money and what? Like, that's the end of it. But people will kill people for money. I mean, they will. But Tyga just doesn't, I don't know. Her demeanor is not of a, I don't want to say of a murderer, but to me, it just seems like she would not want to have a reason to kill her brother for the money. I mean, if that's the case, she could have been killed him a long time ago. Why do it now? You know, or you could say that for any of his half siblings. If they really wanted Prince dead, they could have killed him years ago. And the same thing for Kirk Johnson. Kirk Johnson had known Prince for 30 plus years. Kirk Johnson was a dancer in the Purple Rain movie. And he became a part of Prince's the Game Boys in the early 90s. That was the same group. It was him, Kirk Johnson, or as he was known, Kirky J, and Damon and Tony M. They made up the Game Boys. And so, you know, and then of course in the late 90s, Kirk was also a drummer. So he did some drumming for Prince around the Rave into the Joy Fantastic era around that time. So, I mean, Kirk, why would he want to kill his employer? Like, this is a man, not only his friend, and he's also, you know, so supposed to be protecting him as his bodyguard, but he's known this man for 30 years. Why now? Why would he all of a sudden now decide he wanted to kill him? I mean, so it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, this is his employer. He's being paid. He's taking care of his his family with Prince's money. So why would he just all of a sudden decide to off Prince off and cut off his own income? That doesn't make any sense. Now, there are some things that Kirk has said that, you know, is kind of a little suspect. Like, for example, he supposedly, there's like I don't know if it's a tweet or something that he put out saying that, you know, he was outside of Paisley Park the night that Prince died. Instead of being inside, which is where he should have been, he was outside. The last time anybody saw Prince alive was when he was getting dropped off back at Paisley Park at around 8 o'clock that night of April 20th. And the last person actually to see him alive was his chef. And his chef said that Prince looked really pale and that he just didn't look well. And sure enough, Prince didn't even eat what the chef had cooked him that night. And like I said, I don't know why Kirk decided to stay outside. And then, of course, there is the infamous post that Prince allegedly made about when you think you're safe that was deleted. I don't know if Prince deleted this or if someone else, because after he died, the police came, of course, and searched throughout Paisley Park, and they did not get the computers that Prince were using. And by the time they came back to try to retrieve the computers, there were some things that were deleted off of Prince's computer. So that's also very suspicious. So like I said, I'm very open to him being murdered. But like all I said, that is all circumstantial evidence, and that would not be enough to convict anybody in a court of law. And that's just what it is. I really do feel like it was an accidental overdose, that Prince thought he was taking either Percocet or Vicodin, and that it had a lethal amount of fentanyl in it, and it caused his death. I mean, that's just plain and simple. I just really believe that that is what happened. And a lot of people also point out that he had a very, very high level of fentanyl in his body. The fact that he had enough to kill an elephant, or, you know, somebody said that on YouTube, on a underneath the post on YouTube. Okay, so we realize that Prince is a very small man, right? So it wouldn't take much to kill him as far as like pills go. So it could have been like 2 pills that had nothing but fentanyl in them. That would have been enough. And that would have been considered a high level because of his size. According to his autopsy, he was only 112 pounds. So that's really, really small. And then a lot of people say that that was really real thin. And it was thin even, but according to the BMI index, at his size, that is actually a normal weight. Now, I'm not saying that I agree with the BMI scale, but according to the BMI, which is, you know, body mass index, at 5'2", 112 pounds is a normal weight. And Prince had always been small. Like, I think at the most, he might have weighed around, maybe 125 to 130. So when people say, oh my God, he looks so frail, he's always been small. Like, where have you guys been at? Like, seriously, he has always been a small man. Now, he was probably starting to age a little bit. I think that's what people were really seeing, was the fact that, you know, his cheeks were getting a little thinner, and he was starting to look more like his father, if I'm being honest. So I just think that what we perceived to be, oh, he's getting frail and sick, was that Prince was finally aging. And up until this point, up until like, I would say 2014, he really, and even in 2014, he still looked damn good. So he just was starting to age. I would say by 2015, you could really see the aging process starting to start with Prince. And I mean, he was 57 years old, which is not, you know, not very old, but it's older, you know, and he still looked really good. I mean, in February of 2016, just 2 months before he died, he broke the internet because of his passport photo. And for y'all that don't remember, I'll have to put it on the Facebook page, but he had his hair, his afro hair, picked to perfection. He had his, you know, famous little pouty mouth, and he just looked wonderful. So for people to say that he looked bad and he looked frail, I don't believe any of that is true. And I know none of that has anything to do with the fact that I don't believe he was murdered. This is just extra. But yeah, so that's my number one. I feel like if he was murdered, it was definitely borderline, meaning that it's a possibility, depending on where he got those pills from. And unfortunately, we may never know where those pills came from. I don't know if Kirk got them for them, but I just don't know, because they had to be from some type of illicit source, though, because they had pretty much ran him off at Walgreens, because the week that he died, according to sources that I've read, Prince was going back and forth to that Walgreens at least 3 or 4 times in that same week. So I don't know if they finally was like, hey, you know, we can't, you know, give you any more prescriptions for this, because of course the prescriptions were not in his name anyway. They were in Kirk's name. But I don't know if they were just like, hey, we can't, told Kirk. And of course he never went in. There is, you know, video footage of Kirk doing all of the, you know, the transactions in Walgreens, and Prince would just wait in the car. So I don't know if finally they said, look, you have a limit of how many times you can come to get these pills. And so Prince then, you know, had to try to find some illicit way, and maybe even he got Kurt to do it. And maybe Kurt feels guilty about that. You know, we'll never know, because Kurt is really the only person that really knows about how Prince died, I think. And because he is really the only source that really knows what really happened, And that the fact that he's not talking about it for whatever reason, we'll just never know. And so we can only go off of what was found in his autopsy, which was a high level of fentanyl, and that it was more than likely an accident. Prince thought, like I said, that he was taking Vicodin or Percocet. He just wanted the pain to go away. That's all he wanted. And for those of you that listen to my podcast, my husband, he had a very surreal dream about Prince's death. And I'm going to end the episode talking about it. For those of you who haven't heard it, it's on my Purple Night interview with Gabriel Crutchfield, my husband. It's on that episode. But he speaks kind of low, so you might not be able to hear it. But basically, we were sitting around one night, I want to say maybe about 2 years ago, around this time, around the anniversary of Prince's death. And he just said out loud, look, I really would like to know what happened. And so, lo and behold, that night, my husband had a very, very surreal dream. And in the dream, he said that he felt like he was in Prince's body. And he was walking down a hallway. And he had in his hand, he looked down, in his hand he had a glass of water and some pills. And it was 2 pills. And he took the pills, and then he was walking down the hallway, and he said that he was just in like excruciating pain, like in his legs and in his feet. He said that he could actually feel it, like it was really bad. And so he was walking down the hallway. He took off his jacket because he was feeling hot. And sure enough, there is like a frayed black jacket that they found on the floor, not too far from that elevator where he died. And so like I said, my husband is having this dream. He said as he's feeling, all the things that Prince is feeling, and he took the jacket off because he was feeling hot. He's walking to the elevator, and then the next thing you know, he just leans his head up against the elevator, and then he just his body slowly just slides down, and everything goes black. And then my husband wakes up, and he tells me this dream the night that he had it. And it was so surreal to the point where I kind of feel like, and I know this might sound crazy to some of you guys who might not be as believers in the paranormal as I am, but I really feel like Prince may have wanted to show my husband exactly what happened to him, because he wanted to know. And with that, I really feel like that is what happened. That he took the pills, didn't know that they had fentanyl and that he was going to die. He just wanted the pain to stop. And the pain did stop forever, unfortunately for him and unfortunately for us. But we should all rest assured in the fact that Prince is no longer in pain. I'm trying not to cry, you guys, anymore. And that he is, in a better place. And we miss him, and we'll mourn him tomorrow and all the April 21st, after. But now that he has left us, the only thing that we can continue to do is to continue on in his legacy and bringing people to his music. And the fact that, he embraced, he embraced life. He didn't focus on things like death. And so we need to celebrate his life, celebrate his legacy. And that's what we should do on April 21st. Because Prince told Mel B that, he didn't care too much about, birthdays. And this is around the time, he was starting to become a Jehovah's Witness. He hadn't become a Jehovah's Witness yet, but he was, speaking with Larry and, having Bible studies with him. But he told Mel B that he would celebrate the day that he died, because for him, that was more important than any birthday. And so, of course, we celebrate his birthday every year at the celebration, and that's great. But I really hope that at some point they start doing more celebratory events, which I'm not saying they haven't, because I know in the past they have had more celebratory events, but more celebratory. Bring that back. Don't make it so solemn and sad. Yes, it is sad that he's not here, but for Prince, he was celebrating on April 21st. while we were crying, he was celebrating. Like I said, that might be a little controversial for me to say, but in my heart, that's what I truly believe, that he had overcome death and pain, and that he is now in a place where he doesn't have to experience any of that. And I feel that that's what he wanted, not to say that he committed suicide. So I'm just saying that he just wanted to be away from the pain. He was just tired of experiencing that. And that's why I'm still leaving that option open, that he could have possibly committed suicide. I don't know. None of us know. But for right now, I'm calling it a myth because I don't want to believe that he wanted to leave us like that, because he wouldn't have tried to get help. So I don't want to go back into all that again. But just know that tomorrow, let's not cry. Okay? Well, if you feel like you have to, yes. And I know I probably will while I'm talking about, like, I'm not going to cry. I know I am. But when we're done crying, let's wipe our tears, watch Purple Rain, listen to his music, and just envelop ourselves in his life and legacy. Because ultimately, that's what he wanted for us as his fams. He wanted us to enjoy his music. So Prince Estate, it's about time you put out some more music, okay? Because we want you, just shut up and take our money, okay? Shut up, take our money, give us the stuff, all right, Prince Estate? So, okay, I'm going to end it on that note, you guys. So, like I said, tomorrow, after you're done wiping your tears, watch Purple Rain, play his music all day, do something where you wear your purple. I'm actually going to be broadcasting live on the Facebook page at this, they're doing a Prince tribute and celebration at this place downtown here in Little Rock. So I'm going to be live and letting everybody, see what's going on there with that. And I'm super excited about that. Me and my husband are going. So stay tuned for that. Coming up on the podcast, I finished Diamonds and Curls, Kim Berry's book, Princess Hairdresser. So I have that episode coming next week as well. So you guys, thank you guys for listening as always. And until I see you guys again, or you hear me again, peace and be wild, and may you live to see the dawn. Bye.